Listen, sorry about this, but you're lucky. I had exactly the same situation. I don't remember who asked me, maybe my dad or someone else, and it was in a serious tone like, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to be a Formula One driver." But do you realize that the nearest Formula One track, he says, is not even here? So it's good that you had that experience. So, okay, let's continue.
Yeah, it all happened. I really went there and said, I want to try sailing. And there was this absolutely amazing instructor, Anatoly Ivanovich Sochinok. He told me, okay, but just so you understand, this was in the 70s, and there were no fiberglass boats back then, there were only wooden ones. Purely wooden. Little plywood boats, they're called dinghies. You had to make sure they didn't leak, so you wouldn't sink on that boat. You had to sand, paint, and putty it. Basically get it into good shape every year. And since I came in the fall after the 1st of September, yachting was already over. So do you want to do this? I said, yes, I want to. So here's your boat, get to work. You need to sand and paint it all. And in the winter, you'll be taking theoretical and practical courses, doing swimming exercises, physical training, and so on and so forth. And so I started at the age of 12, little by little, all winter long, sanding and painting my little boat, and I really enjoyed it. What was the most educational aspect of Anatoly Ivanovich's experience? What if it weren't for me at the moment of sanding that little boat, you would have already gotten fed up. I would have already said, no guys, this is something, I hadn't even sailed on it yet. I had to sand and paint it. I said, why would I want such a pleasure? Well, it just so happened that I sanded it down, and the next season, he gave it to me to manage. I learned over the winter. So from that time until I got married, I spent every summer at the sea, well, not exactly at the sea, but on the northern Dvina, which is the mouth of the White Sea. I spent it on a yacht, switching between these little dinghies, starting from the small one called Optimist, and going up from there. You know, it was kind of logical one after the other, so there wasn't a moment where...
It's clear that these dinghies, or whatever they're called...
Dinghies?
Dinghies, exactly. For some reason, I keep saying the word board.
Boat, yacht, boat... Right.
Was there ever a moment, or rather, wasn't there a moment, after your first outings, when you thought, man, I'm going to get into yachting? So it kind of happened logically. You just enjoyed being involved, like managing the yacht, going places, but at some point you must have thought, and I want my own yacht. You're jumping ahead. You had a yacht.
You see, in Soviet times, there was no opportunity to own a personal yacht. That's how this country was organized. Personal ownership didn't exist. All the yachts belonged to the trade unions, and we sailed as crews on these union yachts. Typically, the right to sail on that yacht was determined by your ranking in the club, your status. The first time I went out to sea on a big yacht, well, smaller than this one, was when I was 14 as a cabin boy at the Solovetsky Regatta. And that was just the beginning of figuring out that I wanted to have a yacht. By the time you were managing it, you were already more mature, more understanding of certain things in life. But the story of buying a yacht was truly unique for me, in the sense that when business started in Russia in 1989, 1990, we had a youth housing complex in Arkhangelsk, a MZHK. It was being established there, and there was this form of ownership, like scientific and technical youth clubs, something like that, kind of under the Komsomol. There was such a right to ownership, even without personal ownership. Personal ownership didn't exist yet. So I came to this MZHK and said that I'm a yachtsman, I want to have my own yacht, your yacht, and manage it, not a union yacht, to swap it for this Komsomol yacht, and that's it. And they told me, okay, yeah, great, let's do it, but you need to earn some money for that yacht. How does that work? I'm an engineer, I work at a company, and I earn 125 rubles plus. It doesn't increase. Right? How can I buy a yacht with that money, which at the very least cost 3,500 rubles back then? Well, the smallest one you could buy in the Soviet Union. I said that
And if we draw an analogy with current prices, what would that be approximately?
An analogy with current prices. Well, can you tell me how much a car that falls into that particular class would cost in today's market? I'm not entirely sure, but I would guess it's probably something around the range of... It's hard to say which one. In general, that was the smallest yacht you could buy in the Soviet Union. It's 5.5 meters long.
Just 5.5 meters. In total, got it.
Well, kind of, yeah. There were no other yachts. You couldn't buy it. There was no such opportunity. And yes, I earned those 3,000 over the summer. Do you think I bought a yacht?
No. I said, cool.
And now I know how to make money.
I'll go on and do more, right?
I'll go on and do more, that's absolutely right. In the 90s, I started my first business. Since then, I've been making money. But I spent it and invested it in the business, not in a yacht.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask, since you mentioned that you were in business. And naturally, if you were in business, at some point you got swept away into that field. So here's the question. How did the moment happen when you came back from that field? Because it happens differently for different people. For some, it doesn't happen at all. How was it for you?
It's all simple. So how did I start this business, huh? So I wanted to buy a yacht.
That's true.
But I didn't buy it. Naturally. And so after many years of being in this business in Russia with its ups and downs, crises and everything else, everything is the same as always for everyone. Everything is the same as always for everyone, right? In the end, I found myself in Bulgaria. And when I was moving to Bulgaria and made the decision that I would... Did you have a business at that time? Yes. Yes, I had a business. I was an advisor and the chairman of the board of the Moscow Bank. So I had both my own business and I was, so to speak, in a position. And one of our projects that we were actually implementing here in Bulgaria, well, we wanted to implement it in Bulgaria. It had something to do with yachting. We were producing fiberglass boats here, which we supplied to Russia and sold in the Russian market. Because the Bulgarian market was still weak and unacceptable for these purposes. And of course, we couldn't compete with European models in any way. But at the same time, we could compete on price with those models that were coming to Russia. And we could compete quite well. So our task was to make a boat for 1 million rubles, which would include the boat, outboard motor, and a trailer. So we ended up with a boat costing 400,000, a motor for 400,000, and a trailer for 200,000. And we stayed within the million. But all of this was done. The entire business project was based on an exchange rate of 40 euros. If you know, in 2014, the euro exchange rate went up to 80, then 100. After that, the war in Ukraine started, and we were transporting the boats from Bulgaria through Ukraine to Russia. Well, and most importantly, the bank that financed us, where I worked, had its license revoked. And it stopped working, and it stopped functioning, it ceased to exist. And these three aspects, by that time, had already been going to Bulgaria for 2 years for permanent residence. Well, I lived here almost all the time. And so I decided for myself, why not come here and finish everything there, considering all these three signs that were just right above me, so to speak.
So, now comes probably the hardest part, which is the moment when you have to make the decision to close down everything that was working for you in one place, everything that was bringing in income, food, and so on. At the same time, your move here, and at what point did the story connect for you? Did you have a yacht, right? No.
At the time of the move to Algorithm.
No, actually, do you own a yacht? By yourself ever?
In Bulgaria...
It doesn't matter, really.
Yes, in Bulgaria, but then after I moved, yes.
So how did this transition happen for you, specifically when you decided, like, okay, I'm closing everything down, I'm moving? And at what point did the thought of, I don't know, buying a yacht come to you? And why?
Well, let's put it this way. I'll be honest, that was a mistaken thought. As it turned out later, as it was discovered, this idea was incorrect because, as of today, in the end, I kind of played the role of a captain mentor. It just so happened that when I was studying yachting in my childhood, it was in fact like riding a bicycle. I didn't forget anything. And of course, when I came here, I actually decided that I would also get into yachting. It just turned out that it wasn't my idea, but it happened that I always sailed in Bulgaria as a sort of captain mentor